I was told not to even acknowledge the drone program.
There's video of this.
When I went through the process of becoming press secretary, one of the first things they told me was, you're not even to acknowledge the drone program. You're not even to discuss that it exists, said former White House press secretary Robert Gibbs on Up with Chris Hayes Sunday.
So now think about, okay, by the way, there is video of this. It wasn't, I don't know if it's in this article or not, but I mean, that was essentially the point. But the thing in the video, it's so funny, is they all are laughing about it. Like, they're talking about, like, what a funny thing it is. Like, imagine being in the position where you can't admit that a real thing's real and journalists are asking you questions. And he said, because it is kind of funny in a weird way, but that's like, you'd think a newsman that wouldn't be the number one thing. Oh, here, yeah, this is it.
I certainly think there are aspects of that program that are and will remain highly sensitive and very secret. But let me give you an example here, Chris. When I went through the process of becoming press secretary, one of the first things they told me was, you're not even to acknowledge the drone program. You're not even to discuss that it exists. Wow. And so I would get a question like that, and literally I couldn't tell you what major asked, because once I figured out it was about the drone program, I realized I'm not supposed to talk about it. But here's what's inherently crazy about that proposition. You're being asked a question based on reporting of a program that exists. Right. So you're the official government spokesperson acting as if the entire program, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. Right, yeah. I think in many ways, and I think what the president has seen, and I have not talked to him about this, so I want to be careful. This is my opinion. But I think what the president has seen is our denial of the existence of the program, when it's obviously happening, undermines people's confidence overall in the decisions that their government makes.
That's the major problem with murdering people in the poorest country in the Middle East, Yeah. It might undermine people's trust in you, and therefore your ability to murder more people in the poorest country in the Middle East. So just like, by the way, whenever you see anyone over the last, like, say, 8 years on MSNBC or CNN talking about a threat to democracy and the free press and all this, shut the fuck up. You hired that guy. The guy who's sitting there telling you, like, when it comes to the issue, forget whether you're for the war or against the war. It's a secret war. You're not, forget democracy. The people aren't even allowed to have an opinion on this.
Even as the White House press secretary, you're not even allowed to acknowledge it.
And like, why not? I mean, it's not as if they were like, well, if Al-Qaeda knows that we're coming for them, then something is compromised. It's just like, oh yeah, Obama ran as the peace candidate. He collected a Nobel Peace Prize before he had done anything, and he didn't particularly want to tell people that he had just started this new campaign of just murdering whoever he wanted to for whatever reason he wanted to. And one of the things that's interesting about the technology of it, and I remember people much smarter than me predicting this at the time, I guess I never really appreciated like exactly the timetable of all of it, but it went in 2009, which he's talking about 2009, a few years later there. It went from like, oh, the U.S. has this new technology where we can use drones in war, to all of a sudden now in 2025, you're sitting around and everybody like, this is just part of war now. Literally even the Houthis, I mean, they don't have the capabilities we have, but they have drone bombs. And that's part of how they were able to get the Saudis to finally back out, is like they could hit some of their oil fields with their drone bombs, and it was enough of a pain in the ass for the Saudis to be like, all right, like, call it quits. And so they ended that war in 21. But now these Houthis have been in charge of Yemen the whole time since. In the same way that it was like, we fought this whole war to get the Taliban out of Afghanistan. We just lost. Like, they just still run the whole place. And so these guys are still there. They have gone through what was the worst humanitarian crisis in the world from 2015 to 2021. They survived all of that, and they're still there. And now they see the same goddamn thing happening in Gaza. And they're the one, again, I'm not, like, this is their stated thing. I'm not saying, like, they're all great people or something, but they're going like, no, fuck that. We're standing up for the people in Gaza. And so they were like, as long as all of you guys are supporting Israel, just slaughtering all these people, then we're going to start, like, trying to shut down these shipping lanes, which they don't really have the capacity to do, but they can hit some cargo ships and hit some military ships.
How does this ever settle? How does this ever relax? Like, when you look at what happened in Gaza and you think about the tensions that existed before October 7th, and then this happens, and then then the Israeli attack happens. Like, how does anything come to a peaceful resolution at this point?
Well, it looks really bad at the moment right now, you know? And like what I always like to say, which I, you know, is like 50% just me telling myself something to feel better about the situation, but then 50% like it is kind of, you know, like you could go around the world right now and like England is right next to Ireland. And everybody's just cool there right now. And that would have seemed like impossible, you know?
Right.
And like France and Germany and, you know what I mean? Like there are
Right.
all these countries where like there was a time where it just seemed impossible. And, you know, that was Egypt and Israel. So Egypt and Israel went to war 4 times in the first 20-something years of the existence of the state of Israel. They just kept going to war and war and war against each other. And then in the late 70s, they made a deal. And it was like a land for peace swap.
But isn't it part of the problem that Palestine is not a state? Like,
Oh, that's like the whole
that's
problem.
The whole thing is
Yeah.
like you can never come to peace if you never even acknowledge they exist.
Yeah, they've had Israel took control of what are known as the occupied territories. They took control of Gaza and the West Bank in 1967, and it's one thing. Like I'm not like saying it's ever justified, but like it's one thing to like occupy an area for a few months after a war, as you're going through the process of turning it over to the, you know, like to themselves, or it maybe even a few years. But like we're going into like 60 years of complete Israeli control over these people. And under Israeli control, they have zero rights. Zero rights whatsoever. I mean, like, they don't have the freedom of movement. They don't have freedom to trade with the outside world. They don't have voting rights. They don't have the right of due process. They get if literally to this day, like in the West Bank, where there's like all these big Israeli settlements, because the Israelis are just constantly slowly stealing more of the Palestinians' land. If like an Israeli settler in the West Bank, in the same jurisdiction, gets in a dispute with a Palestinian there, the Israeli citizen, he's a citizen of Israel. He has rights. He goes to a trial. The Palestinian goes in front of a military trial. If he's lucky enough to get that, they have something like a 99% conviction rate. You're just totally fucked. Like, and then look, a lot of people will point to like there's been terrorism on the Arab side toward the Israelis going back many years. But like, I think you're essentially right. You can't expect a group of people who have to just be subjugated for eternity and nobody's going to try to violently fight back. And of course, when they non-violently try to fight back, that gets squashed too. That gets met with violence.